everyone, and welcome in to today's player, coach, profiler interview for our free agents around the world. And today we are joined by none other than Adam Presutti. Adam, thank you for joining me. I'm Jesse O, and it's so good to have you here. The LBA Serie A is now on International Ball TV, and you're a Canadian-born player. You played overseas. How big is this for Canada as we're watching your highlights here?
Oh, Jesse, first off, thank you so much for having me. And very big. I think I was speaking with Tom a little bit, and I think there's just such a lack of information for younger players in Canada and what to expect in America. Sorry, when they start their careers overseas. So there's not enough information, and it's really hard to understand as a player coming out what's needed at the next level. And when you get to see and have more exposure to some of these games that are airing in the top leagues in Italy, you start to understand more of a player that it's a different brand of basketball, and you can start mentally preparing for it. So it's incredible what you guys are doing.
You started at McMaster University, then you moved on to University of Ottawa, obviously, and now you're playing professionally. You had your chance in Ontario, Canada, then you moved over to Sweden, and now where are you?
Right now, I just actually recently signed in Spain. So I've been here. I've been here for about a week and a half. So I'm just starting to practice again at that level and getting to know my teammates. But yeah, so far I'm in a city called Burgos. It's been incredible, the really good atmosphere and very professional club. So I'm very excited about it.
You guys played your last game against Zamora. That was your first game since March 10th of 2020. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And let me tell you, Jesse, my legs, I think I played maybe 5 or 6 minutes and my legs felt like boulders. I haven't played at that level in a long time. But when I got in, I only had about 4 or 5 minutes. I got in one of my first shots and I banged a triple, and it was such a great feeling for me that all the work I've been putting in has paid off.
So how hard was it transitioning from, COVID, where obviously everything was shut down, to all of a sudden, getting your legs back under you again?
It has been a crazy adjustment, and I feel for OUA players, I feel for high school players, I feel for professional players in this whole situation. I know for me, you can do whatever you want to do to prepare for professional basketball or high level basketball. Until you're playing at a level every single day where you're playing full court and contact, all the individual workouts that you do in the weight room, it's not the same energy dispensed. So when you have constantly these lockdowns and you can't find gyms and you're taking 2 or 3 weeks off because of a lockdown, it's very difficult to get in a rhythm. So to answer your question, it's been very, very difficult, not just for me, but for all athletes, especially, university athletes right now, and I think they're just starting back up again, which is phenomenal news. But I got a feel for, the 4th and 5th year players who are trying to make it overseas and are having troubles, getting into a rhythm of the season.
Obviously, it's very hard for exposure in these times too, because, now with the new waves of COVID, everything is kind of always up in the air.
Right.
But it's nice to get guys like you on here for our free agent profilers, just for exposure, showing you off to the world. Obviously, you're very skilled on both sides of the ball. We saw your tapes. In your mind, what are your biggest strengths on the court? And what are you kind of looking to contribute to any team that decides to pick you up?
Yeah, so I think what has separated myself and kind of carved the role out for my career is one, that I'm a true combo guard. But 2, I've always been top 5 or top 10 in 3-point shooting in every league that I've played in. I'm a career 40% shooter. So, that's kind of been what my staple is as a player, is that I'm going to demand the attention of a 40% player that kind of gives a little bit more space and operation space for some of our other import players to get to the rim and attack. Also, too, defensively, I take pride in trying to cover the best player on the opposing team, the guard. And just being an unselfish playmaker, right? Just making the right reads and having a high IQ. Jesse, I talk a lot to younger generations as well, where everybody thinks that when you go overseas, you have to be a 20-point scorer to have a successful career. When you get to Europe, it becomes more about You got to do what you do best and do it better than your competition. So for me, that's shooting threes. I got to make sure that I'm, shooting threes at a high clip, making unselfish reads, defending very, very aggressively, and just making, good basketball plays. And there's a lot of teams that will pay money for players like that. So.
Well, as of now in 2022, you are shooting 50% from three, my friend. So that's got to bode well for something.
One of two.
In your eyes now, what are some of the aspects of basketball? You said you obviously like to shoot threes, but what are some aspects of the game that you're actively trying to get better in, and why are those the aspects that you're choosing to kind of pinpoint, this is where I need to work?
I think what would really separate me as a player and for me to take the next step in my career would be just, getting to the rim. One thing that Canadian basketball doesn't really have a high demand of is 6'10", 6'11" bigs. And the reason for that is, one, the game is changing to more 3-point shooting and more stretch fours and stretch fives. But in Europe, every team that I've played on, you have 7-footers, multiple, right? Even my team here in Spain, like I have 3 of the most athletic 6'10", 6'11" players that I've played with personally. So it's what I'm trying to focus on is, can I get to the rim? Can I get creative with some floaters and finishes and up and unders and just have more composure in that kind of paint area? I think that would really, for me, is a focal point to taking the next level for me in my career.
As we're watching those tapes, we see you bringing the ball up the court a lot. Now, my question for you is, and this is, something that, basketball coaches might ask you a lot, is we see a lot of your teams setting on-ball screens up top to ISO you. So how do you know when the shot is there? For example, mainly what I'm asking is, how do you know when you have a good shot, and what is a good shot in your eyes?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jesse. I think it has a couple of elements to it. I think the biggest thing, what a good shot is for me, is time and situation, right? There are times where a lot of players work on their games and can get step backs or side steps or, up and unders off or get their shot off. But if it's with 18 or 17 seconds left on the shot clock, is that necessarily a good take? And could I get that with 4 or 5 seconds on the shot clock, right? So for me as a point guard, one, I'm always trying to operate within, under 10 to 11 seconds within the shot clock. And two, the most important thing that I'm looking for, especially in pick and roll scenarios, is how to read the big man. Based on how the big man defend, or maybe there's high hedging, maybe there's soft showing, whatever the situation is, I need to demand that big man comes out and respects me enough as a shooter. And if I can get that respect as a shooter, typically I can get my big on a short roll. I can maybe even attack the big because I'm usually quicker than them, turning the corner. So a lot of, how I read the game is based on how they defend that pick and roll scenario. And, and like I said, based on how they do it, there's different reads for different situations.
You talk about, the defensive side on how to guard that. I want to pick into that a little bit more. And unfortunately, this is actually going to have to be my last question, but I'm hopefully going to get to see you a lot more on this platform. But my final question for you of the day is, the game of basketball is just constantly evolving, with the average shots outside of the key going up exponentially in the last few years. So since you know your defensive rotations, do you prefer a zone or a man defense to combat those outside shots? And how do you put pressure on another team defensively in this day and age?
Again, so different elements to that, Jesse. I prefer man-to-man. I think zone is good in certain situations. One, if you're defending a non-shooting team, maybe a team that shoots 25 or 30% from three, I'd be comfortable going into a zone. But I like man-to-man because at the end of the day, it's mano a mano, and you have a job to do. And if you get beat, it's on you, right? And again, it's also, the longer that I've played professionally, and I've played against some incredible guards, quick, I've played against super quick guards, I've played against bigger guards, stronger guards, taller guards, right? And each guard and each check has a different element to the game. So for example, if I'm guarding a super quick athletic point guard, well, I'm going to have to gap them a little bit and make sure that I'm giving myself enough space to recover on their moves. if I'm covering a non-shooter, it means I'm probably going to go underneath the ball screens and just make the proper reads that way, right? So one cool thing I'll say about taking the next level for me in the professionals was that I've been exposed to so many talented, high major Division I guards, or athletic, or high IQ experienced guards, and you can kind of take a little bit from each one of them and learn how to become an all-round better defender for it.
Adam, thank you so much for joining me. This is truly a pleasure to get to know you here, and
Yeah.
I look forward to talking to you 150 more times in the next couple of years.
Jesse, my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.